fan. I tune in all the time. I know you cover this sport on a very intimate level. Just hearing this news, your first reaction, certainly the disappointment that you feel to hear that this has happened again to Jon Jones.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Disappointment. This is the type of news that you hate to report. Jon Jones is the greatest talent I think this sport has ever seen, and we haven't really gotten to see a whole lot of him over the last few years. He was, he failed a drug test for cocaine, came back in 2015 and was stripped of his title after getting in that hit and run. Came back, was supposed to have his redemption story at UFC 200 last year against Daniel Cormier, was pulled from that fight because he tested positive for banned substances. And now here, this was his comeback story. This was Jon Jones returning to the sport, getting his life together. Everything was good. He still looked great against Daniel Cormier, still in the prime of his career. All systems go, and then we get this news that he has tested positive for a banned substance. TMZ reporting that it's an anabolic steroid. It might be a long, long time before we ever see Jon Jones fight again if these test results hold up.
And Dana White has denied that they're going to strip the title. That would seem like it's just a matter of time if it's as serious as it sounds. This was a great moment for him at UFC 214. It was great for UFC, which needs these front-facing stars to push forward. But if you look at, we know it's going to be disappointing for Jones, but what does this mean for UFC to have their number one guy on the pound-for-pound list potentially gone for a very long time, as you said?
There are not many blows that could be any bigger to the UFC as a brand and the organization as Jon Jones, failing another drug test and being out for multiple years. As I just mentioned, this guy is the greatest talent we've ever seen. And right now, Conor McGregor has surpassed him in terms of just fan interest, building fights. He is the superstar right now in the UFC. But Jon Jones, was right behind him, really. You had Ronda Rousey as well, but Rousey has been MIA since her loss to Amanda Nunes at the end of last year. It really was Jon Jones and Conor McGregor. Those are the two stars of the UFC, and now you're looking at, once again, missing out on Jon Jones.
Brett, intertwined in all of this saga with Jon Jones, sadly, is Daniel Cormier, who's had to go along for the ride and had to make so many stops. Have we heard anything from him, or what do we expect to come full circle with Cormier as it applies to this suspension, this failed drug test for Jon Jones?
Yeah, this news literally just coming out this afternoon. I haven't had a chance to talk to Daniel Cormier. I don't really want to speculate as to how he'll feel about this, but look, you put yourself in this guy's shoes. He wanted to beat the greatest of all time in Jon Jones. He got two opportunities to do so. He came up short in both. But it took a long time to get those fights together because Jon Jones was having all these issues outside the cage. And now if you're Daniel Cormier, I just don't think he's going to necessarily be celebrating this. Even if Jon Jones is stripped of the title and he becomes the champion again, what he wanted was an opportunity to beat Jon Jones on a level playing field. And now you just have all this controversy swirling around what were two of the biggest moments in Daniel Cormier's career. So I will absolutely be interested to see what he has to say about all this.
That's something we can look forward to hearing here as we're at Fight Week, the big fight with Mayweather and McGregor, and it will be Brett Okamoto all over that over the next few days. In the meantime, the latest with Jon Jones, who has failed a drug test after UFC 214 in Anaheim. Brett Okamoto with the latest as we show you what this is going to mean for Jones, and this is just the latest chapter of a highly disappointing run for the guy who was the gold standard, unbeaten fighter. One loss, it wasn't because of anything happened in the ring. There you see what happened in December 2014. It was cocaine, and then the rehab facility, a year suspension here for UFC at one point, testing positive for banned substance, and now this latest failed drug test here after UFC 214.